What an idiot. Me. John in Des Moines, Iowa. Thanks for waiting.
Hi, Matt. Hi, John. Good to talk to both of you guys today.
Hi, John. Good name.
I'm calling about a church-state issue. I've always been kind of a staunch supporter of the Establishment Clause in the First Amendment, but there's times when I'm not quite sure exactly where I come down on some things. Are you familiar with the last Monday, some court, the Second Circuit, some court, they turned down the lawsuit filed by the American Atheist about the Ground Zero Cross, saying that it was a secular artifact. You know what I'm talking about here?
I'm familiar with the case. I'm not familiar with the recent court decision.
Yeah, I haven't bothered to keep up with it because this is, while I support American Atheists and I'd be okay with this, this is not, I'm not completely sure how much I agree with them on this. It's not as clear-cut as something like In God We Trust on the money, which John and I were talking about earlier. And even that, yeah. I mean, I don't think it's as clear-cut as that, and that is a court case that I'm not sure I would advocate either, just because you set the risk of setting a dangerous precedent if you lose, whether you're in the right or not.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, I think. At first I was, just became aware of it earlier this week, so I hadn't really given much thought to it, but then I found out that the court said this was a secular artifact. Well, it just astounded me, and I thought, well, clearly this is a violation of church and state. But then I've had some discussions with other non-believers and atheists, and someone pointed out some examples like, well, there's probably in the JFK Museum, there's probably, or maybe certainly is, they've kept all the Bibles that he's ever placed his hand on and swore an oath to or something like that. These are, even though they're religious in nature, they're historical artifacts. And so this cross can be claimed to be an historical artifact, even though I think it's kind of an absurd symbol.
I think there may be some merit there on those grounds and similar issues. I don't know.
Yeah, in theory, I agree that we shouldn't be spending public money on religious displays. I think this is one of those cases, though, that's kind of bad PR for atheists. It's like, look, the atheists are throwing a hissy fit about this. In principle, I guess I agree that shouldn't be there. I don't know if we should be spending a lot of resources. It's kind of a no-win situation to fight things like this.
And I'm not, I don't disagree with John. It may in fact be bad PR. I'm not so concerned about bad PR. My concern is more of taking the risk of setting a bad legal precedent. And there's a lot of fuzziness here. You've given a good example of what's going to probably be, in the JFK library. But in that case, you're talking about the purpose of the library is about an individual. And these things are all true of this individual and represent that individual. A couple of steel girders that roughly formed a cross, while it is true that this is a part of the tower and it's a part of the kind of the zeitgeist surrounding what happened, it's in the public living memory and everything. It was also taken and blessed and held up as a sign of Christian beliefs. And so it's kind of towing away from that line. If, for example, the Twin Towers had a chapel in them, which is entirely possible. I mean, you could. There's chapels in hospitals. You could stick a chapel in your corporate building if you wanted to. Would we not want to put the cross from that chapel up as part of this? I'm not necessarily opposed to removing recognition that we're a nation with a diversity of views, a plurality of views on religious issues. And so recognizing that there are Christians in the country and that this thing was important to some of them is not a big problem. It's when it's portrayed as some sort of official symbol of the entire thing, as if it represents everybody, as if there weren't any atheists or Muslims or Buddhists or Jews who died in the tragedy on 9/11. I don't know. And so I'm at least glad that perhaps we haven't set a terrible precedent, or at least.
Yeah, and the American atheists haven't, at least as far as I know to this point, they haven't decided whether or not they're going to appeal the decision, and I suspect they probably won't. But I just kind of had mixed thoughts on this. Initially, I was, I thought this was clear cut, but I've had some second thoughts, so I just wanted to see if you guys wanted to weigh in on it. So I appreciate.
I've had mixed thoughts too. And I think I don't have mixed thoughts about "In God We Trust" on our money. I think it needs to be removed. But I don't think it's a good legal battle that we should actually be taking up, mostly for fear that we set a bad precedent. And I don't think we're in a position where we're very likely to win, even if the law is on our side. I mean, it seems very clear to me. In the 50s, as a reaction to communism, we took our former motto of E pluribus unum, which was perfectly fine, and we replaced it with this, divisive pro-God message. It was reactionary nonsense, and it represents an endorsement of religion, of one religion over another or religion over irreligion.
Absolutely.
But I don't know that it's worth fighting at this point.
Yeah.
I think we need to change the world just a little bit more first.
Yeah.
Which is why we'll keep doing this. But thanks, John.
And
I appreciate your thoughts. Have a good day.
And I'm not super familiar with the details of the American Atheist case, but I think part of their argument was no other religion of the people who died in 9/11 is represented at all, and they're just taking this, this happenstance of two beams falling together and using it to promote some kind of Christian message. And I can understand that argument, that it's sort of biased. Well, it's very biased. So, like I say, in principle, I agree, but I think they should probably let that one go. There's bigger battles to fight.
Cool. Thanks again, John.
I agree.
Appreciate the call.
Thanks,
All
John.
right, bye-bye.